kitchen, folks. I've just bottled a lemon cider and I've been left with this trub in the bottom of the demijohn, which I'm pretty sure must contain a nice bit of yeast. I was going to tip this down the sink like I usually do, but then I got thinking, I wonder if I could bake bread with what's here, thereby recycling it and not wasting it. Let's find out. So when I bake bread, I normally add 350 ml of liquid into it. So I'm going to tip this in to this measuring jug, and there's barely 50 ml there. So I'm just going to add a bit of cold tap water into the demijohn. I'm going to swill this around to try and get everything that's stuck to the sides and the bottom out of there, because that's where the goodness and the yeast will be. So that seems to be going okay. Keep going. Oh, it's a right workout, isn't it? I'm going to need a cider after this. Right, okay. So I'll get that into the jug as well. Looks like coffee. Okay, so there's my iced latte appearing solution. It's on 250 ml, so I need to make this up to 350 ml now, just with some tap water. Hey presto, that's now on 350 ml. Now I don't need to use this straight away because I've already got some bread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to store this in the fridge, and it should keep quite well in the fridge. So here's a recycled pot noodle tub. I'm simply going to pour the yeast into there. It's not actually a proper pot noodle, it was one of the Chop's own brand ones, but you know what I mean. I'm going to put the lid on it because it came with a fancy lid. Okay, so I've labelled that up so the missus doesn't think it's a nice latte. I've got that in the fridge. I'll be back to you in a few days' time when it comes to making the bread. Let's see what happens. Okay, it's a couple of days later now and I need to make some bread. So here's the cider yeast that I harvested and the water that I'd put it in. It has been in the fridge for 3 days. I've had it out of the fridge for 3 hours. It's now back to room temperature. So let's have a look at it. If I just hold this up to the sun, you can see that there is sediment in the bottom, which is where a lot of the yeast will be, and the liquid above it, it's separated. And there's the view inside. I'm just going to give that a gentle stir around. There we go. So that's all clouded over nicely. So here is my bread maker tin, and I'm just going to pour my yeast mixture into the bread maker tin. I won't need to add any more liquid, but I am going to feed this a little bit. So I've got here some homemade applesauce. It's actually apple and chive sauce, this one. It was an experiment. This contains only apples from my tree, from my garden, and sugar and chives. So there's nothing harmful in there. And this will actually act as a nice yeast nutrient. So I'm going to put a little bit of that in. And another. And another. So 3 teaspoonfuls of applesauce have all gone in there. And I'm just going to give it a little swish around. And I'm going to add to this a generous one of these of sugar. This is just normal household caster sugar. There's probably about the equivalent of 1.5 teaspoonfuls gone into there. So as you can see, it's a lovely day outside. It's nice and warm. I'm just going to put this on my windowsill and I'm going to completely cover it over with this tea towel. And I just want this yeast to have a little bit of a feed and come alive. And I'm hoping it will build a krausen on top of it, which will protect the yeast and the yeast liquid. So we'll come back and have another look at it in a couple of hours' time. Okay, this is now 5 hours later and there is no sign of any activity whatsoever and no sign of a krausen. I'm not convinced that this is going to work. It could be a big waste of time. Okay, I'm just going to go for it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I've wasted some ingredients. The birds will eat it. So here's my yeast, applesauce, water and sugar solution in the bread making tin. I'm going to add on top of this 500 grams of bread flour. This is a mixture which is 400 grams of strong white bread flour and 100 grams of wholemeal bread flour. For flavour, I'm going to add a few Italian mixed herbs because I like Italian mixed herbs. I'm going to add a dash of salt and I'm going to add some pepper. So I'm going to add 1, 2 and 3 little teaspoons of olive spread. Olivio, you can use butter, margarine, whatever, even olive oil, but I'm using this. Right, let's get this in the bread maker. So my bread maker is a Panasonic SD2500. Had it many years, it's very reliable, it's very good. I am going to put this in there. And then you just twist it into place and it locks tight. Pop the lid down. And now I want it on size L for large, because that's the amount of ingredients I've got in there for a large loaf, and I want a medium bake. I'm using recipe number 1, which is just a basic loaf. I don't want to do anything fancier than a basic loaf. And as far as the timer goes, the normal cooking time for this bread would be 4 hours, but I want it to have a really long prove, because I really want that yeast to activate and do something. So I am setting this off on 13 hours, which is massive, but I think it'll work better. And I'm going to press start. The countdown is on. So the time is currently 6 in the evening, 1800 hours. I will be getting up at 7 in the morning. So I've set it for 13 hours, so the bread will be ready for when I get up, so I can have it for breakfast at 8. Hopefully, it's going to be edible. But if it's rubbish and a huge failure, then at least we know that it doesn't work, and then we need to go back to the drawing board and look at how it could work. Hey folks, it's the next morning. The bread's ready in a few seconds. Let's go and have a look. There is 1 minute left on the bread maker, or less than. Moment of truth time. Has the yeast worked or not? Let's find out. Okay, we'll turn the bread maker off. Here goes. Ah, right, okay. I'd say not. That should be way higher than that. Although it is in the right shape, it is domed. I think we need to get this out and have a look. So I'm just using my oven gloves, as the tin is very hot. Yeah, that should be way higher up the tin, so the yeast hasn't really worked very effectively. Well, I could lie and say I was making a flat bottomed loaf. It is a flat loaf. Oh my god. Yeah, it's the right shape on top. It should just be about that much higher. So yeah, it's been a failure. So what's gone wrong? Well, I think it's fair to say that there just simply wasn't enough yeast left in the cider trub. So if you are using a demijohn with a bit of yeast in the bottom still, I think you need to supplement it with some baker's yeast, or even just a bit more brewing yeast possibly. But that alone hasn't cut it. You can see that it's had a go because the dome shape is there, and it has risen ever so slightly, but you know, it's risen, it should have been there, and it's there. So it's a failure in terms of it being a loaf of bread, but I am interested to see what it looks like inside and what it tastes like. So let's have a look. In all honesty, that doesn't look too bad in terms of the you know, I was expecting it to look a lot rawer and have raw dough in the middle. It's definitely not cooked as well as it should be, but I thought it was going to look worse than that. Moment of truth. It's solid, sticky. It doesn't taste that bad. Texture wise though, it's heavy, it's claggy. I'll tell you what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to cut it up into slices, and then I'm going to cut it the other way and make cubes out of it, and I'm going to use them as croutons. I'll toast them in the oven and use them as croutons. So the initial question was, can you bake bread from the trub with cider yeast in it from a demijohn? The answer is yes, you can, but it's not really great bread and you need to supplement it with more yeast. If you've got any tips or suggestions as to how that might have been improved apart from adding more yeast, please say so in the comments below, and I'll catch you on the next film. The film that you've just watched is a Moss Home and Garden production. You can find more by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. I'd just like to say thank you very much for supporting my YouTube channel and for watching my films. It really is very much appreciated. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to receive future updates about the home and garden films which I upload. You can find my YouTube channel by going to www.mosshomeandgarden.co.uk. Please click on the red subscribe button. When you've done that, a little bell will appear. If you press that also, then you'll get future updates about the films which I upload. If you like my films, if you like my style of filming, then you might also like my travel channel, which you will find by going to youtube.com/Stuart Moss or type in www.mosstravel.tv. Again, if you could subscribe to that channel, it would be hugely appreciated. If you'd like to get Moss Home and Garden updates on Facebook, then please open Facebook and do a search for Moss Home and Garden, and you will find the page. If you like the page, then you will get future updates on there. And if you'd like to connect on Instagram for home, garden and travel photography, as well as some stories, then my username is StuMoss, STUMOSS. If you'd like to connect on Twitter, then my username is @StuartMoss. And if you'd like to contact me about film usage or any other issue, please just email me on stewmosshomegarden@gmail.com. Once again, thank you very much for supporting my channel, for watching my films. I do appreciate it. I'd just like you all to have a great day.